So you have, whether you downloaded it on Zoom or you have the notes here or not, the passage from verses 49 through the end of chapter 12, I've divided out into three portions. Tammy, did you want notes?
I have it on my phone.
Okay. Okay. We have verses 49 to 53, and I'm going to call that, well, I have three descriptions. The one is on the page. Jesus' purpose in coming to save will cause division. And then I renamed it, Jesus' mission on earth changes everything. And then I've proceeded down to a C word, change. So those are the three descriptions for verses 49 through 53. The second division is verses 54 through 56. And that is pay attention to the spiritual, not just the physical. The second one is, that is the second renaming, is Jesus addresses the hypocrites who don't see spiritual truth. And then I've renamed it with another C word, convenience. So those are the three topics of verses 54 through 56. The last division is verses 57 through 59, which is Jesus warns, take care of business before it's too late. Or the second one, Jesus challenges them to judge and act correctly before it's too late. And the third one is another C word, challenge. So we have change, convenience, and challenge. What are those all about? We start in verse 49. I'll read this section first. I have come to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it is accomplished. Do you suppose that I came to grant peace on the earth? I tell you, no, but rather division. For from now on, 5 members in one household will be divided 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They shall be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. And you read that and you say, I don't think I get it. Well, we'll start off with, of course, 49, which is in a sense parallel with verse 50. They both start out with a word in the Greek that emphasizes what he's going to say. So the first word in the Greek is fire, and the first word in verse 50 is baptism. A baptism. Baptism. So when we see in verse 49, a fire I came to throw upon the earth. First of all, the concept of fire, we'll get back to that because we have to deal with it when we deal with the whole thing that I just read. I came, or came I, to throw upon the earth. When it says I came, we have there a concept that Jesus came to earth. And by now, if you don't know that, then you've sat there like this for the last 10 years. You know that Jesus came. And according to how I've taught you, and according to, if you read the scriptures, you will find that that is Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus came, God encased in flesh. We got that. When did he come? He came at Christmas. That's no mystery. That's no mystery to anybody. So when it says, I have come to cast fire upon the earth, was that when he was born? And you kind of say, probably not. Was it today, the day that he's speaking? Well, he finishes up that sentence with, how I wish it were already kindled, which means that the fire he came to throw upon the earth hasn't happened yet. Mystery, huh? So we see the image of a fire Jesus came to cast, to throw upon the earth. Well, is that like we see in the book of the Revelation, how grass is burned up and water is evaporated and trees are burned up and so on? Or is the earth the realm of men? Us, humans. If he says, I desire, how I desire, And it's in the Greek. It was funky to try to get through that. I had to check because it's unusual, and we've never seen it before in the book of Luke anyway. He's never said it, and he may have never said it anywhere else. Period. We don't know that. We just know that in Luke he hasn't said that yet. How I desire, how I wish. It's the desire of my heart that the fire that I came to cast upon the earth was already kindled. The fire was already going. We understand that fire destroys. We understand that fire purges. We understand that fire, especially the image of this, is a violent image. So, what does fire do? Well, when it goes through, wherever a fire has gone through, what is left? Well, if it was what you'd call burnable, then it was ash. But if it was, for example, in a kiln, and certain things were put in there, I call them rocks, but it ends up where the gold is purified, the silver is purified, whatever was put into the fire is purified. It's purged of something, impurities. So what's going to happen? We're going to connect verse 49, and then we'll get back to it, with verse 50. Because verse 50, the first word, is a baptism. Now I possess, I have to be baptized with. That's how it would read. And that baptism that he possesses, that he must be baptized with, is doing something to him, and it's distressing him. It is the old King James word of straitened I didn't like, because quite frankly I don't understand the word. So I put it into words that I can understand, and that is I am being pressed upon. I am being hemmed in. That's the same word we saw back in chapter 8 when he was going to Jairus' house and the crowds were compressing him. The crowds were so thick that he was hemmed in, he was pressed in. He's saying that about himself. He is pressed in upon until that baptism would be concluded. So if you get the two images here, and they're both important words, fire and baptism, not saying they're equal, but when in what they are, but the imagery leads us to a conclusion. So Jesus came to throw fire upon his creatures, humankind. And we know what fire does. And when Jesus says, how I wish, he's talking about, this is all referring to his redemptive purpose. Just think, if Jesus had not come, what you and I would have to do to be saved. I don't even know. I'd have to be really good. And I know me. So I'm already lost. I'm doomed. But Jesus came and he had a purpose. And here is the only place that it describes this way. Matthew, it refers to some things similar, but a fire he came. And what is that fire going to do? Well, he himself is that fire. He's not calling upon God to rain fire down upon the earth. We saw that in Sodom and Gomorrah, and God just did that. And the place was burned up. This is Jesus himself, and it's his redemptive work. And when the fire goes through, guess what's left? Everyone by faith who has recognized who Jesus is, Emmanuel, God with us, the fulfillment of all the Old Testament prophecies about God's redemption, they are left standing. Purged of what? Their sin. That still boggles my mind, that I am declared righteous in God's sight. That's unbelievable. And those who reject Jesus, there's going to be a whole bunch in here he's going to refer to that way. What's done with them? Well, they're destroyed. So we have that image. We have the baptism, which he has to be baptized with, and he's under great duress until the time is done. Well, he's pressed upon, and I believe that's in his spirit. That which is, of course, that his hands aren't marked yet. There's no one squishing his hand or his feet. His spirit is being pressed upon. Until what? Until the redemption price is paid. And he knows what he's here for. He knows where he's heading. He understands this concept of purification, the purging, the destruction of sin. The power of sin is gone from you and I. He made that possible. He burned it away, if you will. This, the image, as I struggled with trying to describe that, we don't look at it that way. We've never described the cleansing of our sin as being done by fire. We never do. So this image is, in a sense, for the first time, I've had to explain it this way. And I have to explain it this way because Jesus is explaining it this way. The baptism we understand, and some of you understand the baptism by fire, and that's probably alluding to both of these combined, but Jesus had to go through this. And remember what baptism is. It's a complete immersion. No little points sticking up. It's a complete identification, a complete completion. And so the redemption that Jesus is looking to accomplish for us upon the cross, he is looking forward to that to be accomplished upon the cross in the near future. And while he's standing there, it's not yet done. It's not yet done. So he wishes it was done. I mean, we talk about looking forward to going to the dentist to get a root canal. Well, quite frankly, I would rather have a root canal than a lot of other things that I have to look forward to, including certain meetings. At least Dean isn't going to be threatened by that meeting he's having. I've been threatened in many meetings where I've had to lead. So I would rather have a root canal. But you understand, I don't want to do this. But Jesus is going to. And he's going to be under duress until it happens. Now the next, in verse 51, we have something fascinating. He says, do you suppose that I make my appearance publicly? That's what that whole word means. I came forth, or I came, to me is what it is, but it's bigger than that. Do you suppose that I publicly appeared to give peace on the earth? I mean, stop and think about that. Isn't that how people think about Jesus? I mean, isn't he called the peacemaker? Isn't that which the apostles wrote was grace and peace be unto you? And isn't that one of the legacies that I keep sharing with you that Jesus left us? His love, his joy, his peace. What is he saying here? Do you suppose that I made my appearance upon this earth to give peace on the earth? Is that what you think? Let me tell you what I think, Jesus speaking. No, I tell you, but rather division. And you stop and say, dude! There was one of the pastors I had that one of his phrases, he loved to use the division of Jesus in the church. His problem was the application of that. He was always the center of that division, not Jesus. So He always quoted this to me, and I just look at him like, you've got a problem, buddy, but he had lots of problems. Yes, Jesus came to create division. And you say, okay, my brain just went, because I don't get it. Stop and think about it. The world thinks of Jesus as what? A peacemaker and a pacifist, right? Jesus would never go to war. He was too nice. And he was really limp. I mean, isn't that the pictures from the Middle Ages? He's white, and he's kind of always standing there like this. Oh, well, if he was a pacifist and a peacemaker, then how is it that today, if you follow him, you would be killed? Period. No questions. You follow Jesus, the pacifist, the peacemaker, and you will be killed. So how does that compute? How does that come together? It's because when all is said and done, it's this that divides. This right here. This divides. This divides humankind. This is so offensive to the world because it's the world looks at it and says, you Christians are so self-righteous, you think you know it all and you have the only way, and the cross, which represents everything you believe, is offensive to me. Well, everything we believe is based upon the person and the work of Jesus Christ. So it's him that is the offense here. This represents him, his person, and his work. He is the one that divides. Let's look at it. For from now on, 5 members in one household will be divided. 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Now there's a whole explanation here. I'll see if I can make it real quick. A father and mother would be a unit. Who's in the house? Well, the unmarried daughter, and then the son who has brought his wife, who is also now a unit. So the son and the daughter-in-law live in the same house with mom and dad and the unmarried sister. See, there's 5. Basic, simple explanation. It's not a matter of Uncle Fred and Aunt Betty and cousin Rupert. It's the small family unit. And what is happening? Jesus divides the smallest family unit. And I have talked to several of you in here over the years. You are in pain over unsaved loved ones. You begin to talk to them and you talk about Jesus, you don't need to come back. We won't do that here. Guess what that does? That hurts us. Not because my feelings are hurt, but because you realize that they are taking truth and they're saying, don't confuse me with the facts. I do not want to hear the facts. That God loves me like crazy and he provided a way to cover my sins. I don't want to hear that. And there will be, because there is division. From this point on, Jesus divides. Following Jesus divides. Those who say he isn't the Christ, God the Son, will not follow men like me. Because I say Jesus is the only way. It's all about him. It cuts into the smallest form of government that God made, the family. So what do we have? We have that Jesus' purpose in coming to save men from their sin causes division. Jesus' mission on earth changes everything. Change is the key word. We move on to the second portion, 54 through 56. And Jesus was also saying to the multitudes, when you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say a shower is coming, and so it turns out. When you see a south wind blowing, you say it will be a hot day, and it turns out that way. You hypocrites! You know how to analyze the appearance of the earth and the sky, but why do you not analyze this present time? And again you say, what just happened? We're talking about the weather, and all of a sudden you're calling me a hypocrite. Okay. Pay attention to the spiritual, not just the physical. First of all, we understand that we're still way back from, verse 1? Because in verse 13, someone in the crowd said, nothing's changed. He's still out in the street, this crowded street, with his disciples close by, probably the 70 involved in that, and then everybody else who wants to be there. Now, it's interesting that he now, from talking to, in a sense, addressing the 12, he now turns and he's looking at everybody. So he's speaking to the multitude. And the simplicity here, I don't need to spend a lot of time. These are things that are true. When you see a cloud rising in the west, you say, ha, rain! And when you feel the south wind blow, you say it's going to be a scorcher. See how simple that is? Okay. In Portland, if there was an east wind, that means it's coming from Montana and flat places. And that means it was coming from Canada, and that means that whatever's coming up the gorge is going to freeze your pipes. And that's what it did. So you never wanted the east wind. When you knew it was coming, man, you made sure that you were prepared. All right. So the simplicity of the statement is anybody in here can look at the sky and say, it's going to be a scorcher. In Arroyo Grande, in the summer when it's nothing but fog and about 50 degrees, we say the valley must already be at about 90 to 100. We know that. Okay, so why does he say all of a sudden, eyeball to eyeball with everybody, you hypocrites! Feel better? You know how to, I got to look at this word, it's analyze, but it's also not. How to distinguish, to decide upon after examination. You judge it, you discern, you distinguish. And that comes from that word, which I've mentioned from time to time, dokimazo, taking the gold coin, biting it, to determine whether it's a piece of lead painted over with gold paint or whether it's a real piece of gold. It's examination. You know how to examine that. You know how to examine the weather, the appearance in the sky and the earth, but why do you not examine to determine, to test out this present time? As I was sitting in my chair this week, I didn't have a pen, so I didn't write it down. I went through the whole list of things that the church is hypocritical on. And I'm not talking about, people walking in piously and at the top of their lungs, they're singing praises to God and then going out and swearing. I'm not talking about that kind of hypocrisy. I'm talking about the hypocrisy of God's church. I'm not going to name his name, mostly because I don't care about him. But one of the top Christian leaders who has written several books in the United States and in the world said that one of the 7 major things facing God's church is global warming. Thank you for that. And I'm sitting there going, seriously? People are walking away from God all the time. They're committing suicide. They're transgender, the government, and global warming. Okay, well, you get the idea. See, to me, that is the two-facedness of the self-importance of the proclaimers of truth. And it's for anybody that's successful up here from the pulpit and they're seduced, Star Wars, by the dark side to follow me firstism. I've got this idea, and it'll make me popular with people like this young lady in the front row. She's invisible. She says that global warming, she came to me and said global warming is really a problem. So in order to be popular with her and her generation, whatever that generation's called these days, I'm going to say that, anyway, it's a seduction and it's a hypocrisy. How many people in the church say that abortion is definitely a right? Yes, I just crossed the line. Because it's just a fetus. It's not a human until there's a heartbeat. And anybody that works with animal husbandry knows that when a sheep is pregnant, inside of it is a Great Dane. Everybody knows that. Because it's not a lamb. It's not a sheep. Evolution. The hypocrisy of God's church to say that, yeah, God used evolution to get us to where we are today. Let me tell you this. This is one, and this is one. You add them up. How many are there? Not three. So 4? Okay, there's 2. Talk to me about the evolution of math. See, 1 plus 1 used to be 2. Now it's 3 because it's evolved. See, nobody would say that. Nobody. Math doesn't evolve. Well, wait. So math, which is what? Conjured up from here. We understand it. We see it. We dissect it. We put it out there. It's real. We can say that doesn't evolve, but we can say that the palm tree was once a bottle brush, and then it evolved. And I'd say nobody in their right mind would say that. But there's a whole lot of people that say that. Even in God's church! So the hypocrisy of God's truth to discern the times, to discern what's true, is going to separate. Why? If you know, which is what it is, it's to know. You knew that the sun coming up in the, where's east? In the east, yesterday, you know that it's going to come up in the east tomorrow. You know that. That's a know, it's a continuous to know, it's a perfect tense. Then how do you not know to test the season of this time? And who's standing right there? God encased in flesh speaking to the people. That's who's speaking. How come you can tell the weather, but you can't tell me? How come you can examine that and speak with authority? It's going to be a scorcher. But you look at me, you listen to me, and you say, he's a pacifist. He's a prophet. He's a good man. He's a doctor. And reject who you see. So, verse 54, the phenomenon is no-brainer. They see and know. Verse 55, it's another no-brainer. We have 2 natural examples that they can read easily, and yet, think about it, both are beyond their control. They have no control over it, right? They have 0 control. They can't make the cloud appear. They can't make the wind change and come from the south. This season of time that Jesus is speaking about is his tabernacling with us here on earth for 33 years. They know the weather, but not the eternal things. We allow the natural to supersede the supernatural. We are concerned about our physical, economical, social, psychological, emotional well-being, but set aside spiritual truths that have eternal ramifications. Third point. Jesus warns, take care of business before it's too late. Or Jesus challenges them to judge and act correctly before it's too late. Or the simple word challenge. And why do you not even on your own initiative judge what is right in verse 57? For while you are going with your opponent to appear before the magistrate on your way there, make every effort to settle with him in order that he may not drag you before the judge and the judge turn you over to the constable and the constable throw you into prison. I say to you, you shall not get out of there until you have paid the very last cent. Once again, you say, I'm not sure I get it. Pretty simple. The key here is verse 57. The same way that you don't analyze, discern, dissect, and determine with correctness the truth of verse 56, the present time, why do you not, let's see, I've got to read it differently. Why do you not also of yourselves judge the right thing? Judge that which is, I wrote in the notes, it is right, but not the difference between right and wrong. It's right as in righteous. Why can you not determine the righteous thing? What he's talking about ultimately is dealing with their sin. And the illustration he gives with going to the judge, and on the way there, and I can't envision this. I think in our day, you come in this way and he goes in that way. But anyway, you're going together to the judge. Jesus says, this is an imperative. He says, make every effort. Whatever you can do, take care of business with the one who's going to judge you before you get to the judge. Because guess what? If it goes against you, guess where you get to go? You get to go from bailiff to jail. And he says you're not going to get out until the very last farthing is paid, the last cent, the last 1/8 of a penny. When you're in jail, how much opportunity do you have to earn denarii? And you say, well, they do pay the prisoners to do work. And it's like, okay, do they pay them $15 an hour? Well, I don't know what they pay, but I'm pretty sure it's not the quote-unquote minimum wage. It's not very much. You owe $100,000. How long is it going to take you in jail, working every day, to pay off that bill, that debt? The point of this really is that you can never pay it off. You're going to remain in jail forever. So, take care of business before you have to take care of business before the judge. Who's the judge? I'll give you a hint. Take care of business with God before it's too late. Because guess what? Once you get thrown into jail, there is no getting out. This whole matter of paying the last farthing, it's the possibility that only pertains to the figurative language that Jesus is using here. It does not, when people go to hell, that's a whole religious system. Purgatory, whole religious system. You get purged in purgatory. Someone else keeps paying the price for you so that the last farthing is taken care of. Well, guess what happens when everybody that knows you 2 or 3 generations down the road quits paying for your price? And you're still there. You're still there. And it's a goofy doctrine that has nothing to do with this. This is figurative language only that draws our attention to take care of business with God before it's too late. So, in this, I hope I've explained it to you adequately enough. You have the change that Jesus brings in verses 49 through 53. It's better that he comes and creates a division to where there are at least some sheep. Because there's a whole lot of goats. And before Christ, we were a goat. But through faith in Jesus Christ, we become sheep. Better to have a division where there are at least some sheep through him than to never have come and everybody remains lost. The convenience of following our own way, our natural way, doesn't pay dividends. only in putting sunscreen on, which doesn't have eternal value. And finally, if you want to judge correctly, judge spiritually, scripturally, through Jesus Christ, and take care of business so that, because we're all going to face the Maker. Whether you believe there's a Maker or not, the Creator God is going to judge us all. And he's going to say, why should I let you into my heaven? Every one of us can point to Jesus and say, because of what he did for me, he is mine, I am his, by his blood, according to your promise. Good answer. Come on in. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I was a good guy. Father, I get the sense that Jesus is being squeezed here. And what comes out is pure truth. And it cuts below the skin. And God, none of us are exempt from paying attention to the truth that Jesus squeezes out of us. And our answer, there's only one answer, and it's Jesus. He's the reason for every season. He's the reason I can stand before you. He's the reason I get to go to heaven for eternity. He's the reason that I have any peace, love, or joy in me at all. So may, Father, as the days progress, we are willing to be refined by the fire of his redemptive power, so that when we get to the other side, our wedding dress as a bride will be pure, and we will be presentable to our groom. Lord, go before us today and in the days ahead so we can follow you clearly. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.